we can. Well, you
All
want to just
right,
start?
this started out as an ordinary Sunday ride, and it ended up in Philadelphia. And this is Broad Street going. We're going south, heading toward City Hall. That's City Hall in the background.
How long
At
did it used to take to drive from Nanticoke to Philadelphia?
about 4 hours.
Okay.
2 hours, let's say, to Easton, and 2 hours from there to Philadelphia. And this is downtown Philadelphia, Broad Street, as I recall.
Looks
Now,
like you're at an airport here.
now we're at an airport, and I think this is in Washington.
Do you remember why you were in Washington?
And no, I can't
That's
remember.
okay.
And that's, of course, that's the Washington Monument.
Or this could have been your sister's video, right?
It could have been, yes.
Yeah, from her honeymoon.
Yes, that's right.
So this is in the early 40s. There's the Capitol.
Yes,
So you let them borrow your camera on their honeymoon?
sure. I had the only camera. Uh, movie cameras were mighty rare in those days. And this is in front of Sister Theodota, my Aunt Mary's convent, with my father and Aunt Teresa and Aunt Mary.
She worked.
1413 V Street she lived at. That's where they were located.
She moved out west eventually, right? Wasn't she out west for a little bit?
She
No.
went.
Was she out west at all?
Oh, she was all over.
Okay.
Many places, yes. And this is Gettysburg. I used to know what that statue was, and I can't
I
remember.
think that's Robert E. Lee. Could be wrong.
And that might be the only Southern monument on the battlefield.
Now, you went to Gettysburg a couple times.
Yes, twice. The first time was in the 30s when we went in what was then a new 31 Auburn car, and I think Aunt Margaret went with us on that trip.
See, that's the Peace Light Memorial there.
Yeah,
I think that's DC
and
again, right?
these were taken on a trolley in Washington. A moving trolley. I don't recognize this.
I guess that's the Washington Monument there.
I think so, yes. Uh-huh. Way back there. And there's a dirigible. And now this is Mount Vernon. And this is taken in back of the Mount Vernon home of George Washington.
Who all went to Mount Vernon with you?
I'd have to think hard about that.
You said your dad was there, though.
I think so. So this would have been in the 30s before I ever had a car.
Did your dad like to drive around?
Oh,
in town?
yes, he lied. And here's Mount Vernon in the front. We went for a ride almost every Sunday.
Okay.
That's a front shot of Mount Vernon.
What type of car did he have?
His first was a 25 Chrysler, and then he got a 31 Auburn. Oh, there's Bernie L. in their backyard, and his two brothers, Dolphy and Donnie, and his brother John, who was killed in World War II. He was parachuted into a small town and was killed. They lived right up the street from us, 4 houses up. And here's my sister Helen and Mary and John King in the backyard at Nanticoke.
Is your father's rose garden there too? Your father's rose garden there too?
Yes. This is the train station in Nanticoke. And this, I think, was the going back to work of my brother Bill, who then worked at the Jones and Laughlin Steel Company in Aliquippa, which is near Pittsburgh. That's Bill with his back to us getting on the train. And it was at Aliquippa that he met John King. They both worked for J&L Steel Company, and he brought him home. John brought him home by car one weekend, and he met Mary, and the rest is history. There goes the train. This is in Erie, where Bill went from Aliquippa to Erie, and he worked for the who was it he worked for in Erie? General Electric. That's who it was, GE. And that's taken at a pier in Erie. I was much impressed with the size of that passenger boat there. And this is taken in Asbury Park, and that's the nephew of Mrs. Edmonds, Mrs. Maug Edmonds, who lived a couple of doors from us, and they lived in Asbury Park, and they took me, Maug and Mrs. Edmonds took me to visit them in Asbury Park. And we were out catching crabs. And this is the boardwalk at Asbury Park. Among others, I saw the man who tried and convicted Bruno Hauptmann for the murder of Lindbergh. He was a lawyer in that area, and he was on the boardwalk one day, and they pointed him out to me. I nearly fainted. I used to know his name, and what was his name? Well, whatever. Here we are in the airport in 40 Fort, and that's the open plane. The first time Idris and I flew over Nanticoke in that open plane. Here we go over Nanticoke.
How did you know the pilot?
Idris was the pilot.
How did you know him?
Oh, I played with Idris from the time we were 5 years old. He lived down the street. That's Idris. I'm in the back. Seat. It was an open, low-wing monoplane.
Did he fly as a hobby, or?
Yes. Well, he just loved flying, and he learned to fly before he got into the service. And during this war, he flew planes from place to place for the Air Force. And this is Mary Kins out front in a snowstorm on Green Street. And that little girl, I know her, and I can't think of her. Flowers. She was never mind. Here we go on the second flight over Nanticoke. This time we're in a Piper Cub, which is a closed-in kind of airplane where you sit front and back, but you're inside. Again, this is Idris flying. There's Nanticoke in the Susquehanna River. Idris, as I said, went on into the war, and he was a ferry pilot, they called them. They ferried planes from place to place.
Was he in Europe or in the Pacific?
No, in the U.S. I don't believe Idris ever went overseas. He was never in combat. And after the war, He continued in aviation as a what do they call the guys who?
Just commercial pilot or commercial pilot? Like
No, they are stationed at airports and they control.
Oh, air traffic.
Air traffic controller. Yeah, that's what he was. Until he retired. He died just a few years ago. And we're still over Nanticoke. There's that's Idris getting out of the plane.